The man accidentally dropped the duck egg. The metallic sound made him pause in confusion. He picked it up and examined it closely, only to discover it was a golden egg inside. Mark rushed it to a lab for testing. The results left him stunned. It was a high-purity gold egg. He excitedly shared the secret with his wife, but she reacted with instant regret. Mark quickly asked why. She told him she had just sold the duck. Hearing this, Mark panicked. He drove straight to the farm. After some intense haggling, Mark bought the duck back at 30 times the price. The farmer said the duck was still in the backyard. But when Mark went to look, all the ducks looked completely identical. For a moment, no one knew how to proceed. Then Mark suddenly remembered. His duck would lay an egg whenever it heard a dog bark. So the whole family got on the ground and started barking wildly. But with so many ducks, it was impossible to tell. Their youngest son, disappointed, opened the gate and walked away. Unexpectedly, all the ducks rushed out. Everyone scrambled to round them up. While crossing a bridge, Mark even fell into the river. Just when they thought the duck was lost, one duck began following their son. The boy excitedly picked it up. Mark and the others gathered around to confirm if this was the magic duck. Mark got on the ground and barked like a dog. Sure enough, the duck laid an egg. Mark eagerly cracked it open. Inside was another golden egg. The family returned home thrilled. They decided to keep the secret and hid the golden eggs around the house. But then Mark's wife received a debt collection notice. Left with no choice, she used a golden egg to pay. The bank only accepted cash, so she exchanged the gold for bills. Mark was furious when he found out, because if discovered, they could all go to prison. But a friend reassured him. No one would believe a duck laid golden eggs. Mark thought that made sense, so they started cashing in eggs. But what they didn't know was that danger from the golden eggs was already on its way. The man used an iron hook to fasten the outside bolt, then pushed open the small window on the iron door. Just as he was about to open the iron door, a wounded policeman rushed in. He immediately locked the only exit, then took tools from the emergency kit. Enduring intense pain, he poured alcohol on his thigh. The prisoners in the cells looked puzzled, but seeing the policeman escorting them was badly injured, a thought suddenly occurred to them. Unaware danger was closing in on them. Mark was watching through the door crack, observing every move the policeman made. He planned to escape the cell when unnoticed. But right then, the sound of a chainsaw came from outside the prison van. As the policeman checked the cockpit monitor, Mark pushed open the cell's iron door, slamming the policeman into the nearby compartment. Luckily, the policeman reacted quickly, grabbing the cell door. Seeing he might be locked in by the prisoner, the policeman pressed his hand over Mark's eyes. Mark yanked the door open, then stepped forward and fought with the policeman. Soon Mark threw the policeman into the hallway. At the critical moment, the policeman drew his service pistol, barely managing to control the situation. He stood up intending to lock Mark back in the cell, but then a pungent smell filled the compartment. A prisoner touched and discovered large amounts of gasoline had seeped into the compartment. Before he could react, the gasoline on the floor instantly ignited. Soon the other cells also caught fire. As the policeman grabbed a fire extinguisher to put out the flames, Mark opened all the cell doors. The policeman quickly drew his pistol, trying to stabilize the situation, but the prisoners, relying on their numbers, slowly forced him into a corner. Just as both sides were locked in a tense standoff, the walkie-talkie suddenly crackled to life. The man would secretly spit out his medicine each time after taking it. Whenever no one was around, he'd pull out an antibiotic pill. He tied stolen fishing line around a bottle, then fastened the other end to his tooth. He swallowed the bottle and let it sit inside him. Next, he took apart a lighter and removed the flint. He hid the flint in the gap under his fingernail. After that, he used a shoelace to tie his wrist, placed his thumb against the edge of a table, and dislocated it with a sickening twist. He pressed against the table, not daring to make a sound, because this was his only chance to escape. The next day, Mark was restrained and taken to the hospital. He was strapped to an operating table. As the doctor injected him with anesthetic, Mark used his teeth to crush a hidden glass vial. The liquid inside counteracted the anesthetic. He pretended to be fully unconscious. Once the doctor let his guard down, Mark slowly worked his dislocated thumb free, allowing his hand to slip out of the restraint. Seizing the moment, he kicked the doctor away. He quickly disconnected an acetylene hose, used the flint from his fingernail to ignite it, then blasted the rushing guards with a jet of fire. Chaos erupted in the operating room. Mark burst through the door and ran. He grabbed a nearby iron, dove into a laundry chute and slid down. He landed in the hospital laundry room. By now, the hospital was on lockdown. Mark disguised himself as a doctor to slip through. To remove the shackles from his ankles, he used a medical cart as cover to reach radiology and forced a technician to unlock them. Then he grabbed an acetylene tank and ran to the server room, spraying the gas into every corner. When police spotted him, they ordered him to raise his hands and come out slowly. Instead, Mark tossed the ignition source and fled. The server room exploded in flames. The hospital lost power and communications. Mark covered barbed wire with a tarp, climbed over the security fence, smashed through a window with his fist, and broke through the police perimeter. He grabbed a hammer and smashed a wall, crawled into the sewer through the hole, and slipped out through a manhole. Just like that, Mark had successfully escaped. This is a line of death. Anyone who crosses it immediately collapses. A man tried to drive through, but passed out the next moment. The out-of-control vehicle crashed by the road and exploded in a huge fireball. Police arrived soon after. To uncover the secret, they sent a detective. He put on a gas mask, tied a safety rope, and carefully stepped over the white line. He collapsed after just a few steps. The team quickly pulled him back, and the detective woke up shortly after. They believed the town was cursed. That morning, the town was holding a party, but right at 10 o'clock, a piercing sound filled the air. Every living thing in town lost consciousness. Police outside the line brought in an expert. While she was observing, a calf inside the line woke up. Then the townspeople began to stir. Police conducted a full search of the town, but found nothing. Just when it seemed the incident was over, every woman in town was pregnant, and they had all conceived on the day of the blackout. They decided to abort the pregnancies, but that night every pregnant woman had the same nightmare. By the next morning, they had all changed their minds. On the day of delivery, the hospital was packed. Delivery rooms were stretched to the limit. Soon babies were being born one after another. But one woman gave birth to a stillborn child. The expert took the body for an autopsy. She discovered all the babies shared the same DNA, meaning they had the same father. As the children grew up, the adults noticed something was wrong. Each child had extremely high intelligence and pure white hair, even more frightening. They all possessed supernatural abilities. The moment this baby was born, he snapped his father's finger, then carefully helped him shave his beard, only for the beard to grow back instantly. So the couple took the baby to see a doctor. But the doctor said everything was normal. The next second, Jack kicked him out of the room. As Jack grew older, his superpowers grew stronger too. One day, Jack was swinging with a friend. He pushed just a little too hard and flung his friend into the distance. During a test, he used X-ray vision to cheat and accidentally burned a classmate's exam paper. Even in soccer matches, Jack could take on the entire field alone, kicking both the ball and players into the goal. After being scolded by his dad, Jack defiantly slammed the car door. The next second, the car fell to the ground. Because of these unusual abilities, Jack became increasingly isolated at school. No one even came to his birthday party, so he blew out the candles himself. One day, Jack was sleeping at home when his boss called. The boss asked if he was late for work. Jack immediately said he was in the office. The boss didn't believe him and went to check. Jack used his powers to teleport there instantly. The annoyed boss sent him to greet a new employee. With one X-ray glance, Jack realized the new hire was his crush. They quickly struck up a conversation, but the boss also liked her. So he sent Jack to buy ice. When no one was looking, Jack turned on a faucet and froze the running water into ice cubes. But when he returned, his crush had already left. Jack sprinted after her, caught up with her on the subway, and they shared a meal together. Then a group of troublemakers walked in. She told them to keep it down, but they ignored her. She walked toward them, and Jack was pushed to the ground. Disappointed, she left him behind, stranded at the subway station. As Jack stood there dazed, an accident suddenly happened. The subway train lost control and raced toward the platform. Seeing this, Jack used his powers and charged forward. He reached the terminal first and smashed a fire hose cabinet, wrapped the hose around the iron railings, then stretched out his arms to stop the train. Luckily, the hose held and the train was brought to a stop. Jack finally breathed a sigh of relief. The rain pours heavily outside the car, yet the man inside is dying of thirst. He has been trapped in the vehicle for 3 days and nights. His only source of water is urine from days ago. Nick simply cannot bring himself to drink it. Just as he loses all hope, a voice suddenly comes from the car's display. The owner says he locked Nick in the car to punish thieves like him. But if Nick provides his ID to prove he is not a repeat offender, he might consider letting him go. Faced with this demand, Nick firmly refuses. So the owner remotely turns on the AC. The temperature inside plunges instantly. Nick shivers violently from the cold. He uses items in the car to wrap himself for warmth, but even then he remains freezing. Then the owner calls again. Seeing this, Nick quickly answers. The AC turns off. Nick finally breathes a sigh of relief. Another day passes like this. He realizes the owner never intended to free him. When the owner calls again, Nick doesn't beg for release. Instead, he asks for some water. The owner doesn't refuse his request, but he sets one condition. Nick must give his name and ID. Nick wants to refuse, but to survive, he finally provides them. The owner says water is under the front seat. Nick quickly grabs the bottle and drinks it all. Without water, he would die of dehydration. The owner mentions a pack of crackers in the glove box. Nick immediately takes them out and eats. As Nick devours the food, he unexpectedly finds a controller in the compartment. He guesses it controls the car doors. After the owner hangs up, Nick hurries to the front seat and pries open the panel below. But just as he tries to disable the controller, danger suddenly closes. The man had just pushed open his door. when an arrow suddenly shot right in front of him. He picked up the note attached to it. It said if he fired a gun into the air, he would receive a large sum of money. Without hesitation, he fired a shot skyward. At that moment, a truck driver got into his vehicle and found a note on his seat. It told him to drive to a specific location after hearing a gunshot. Thinking it was a prank, he tossed the note aside. But as he reached for his keys, $10,000 fell out. Then he heard the gunshot outside, so he quickly drove to the destination. A man with a scar was waiting there. He took an invitation card and told the driver to keep waiting. Then he walked into the largest jewelry store. The scarred man handed the invitation to the manager. It instructed him to pack all the jewelry, or the well-dressed man outside would detonate a bomb. Terrified, the manager rushed to the vault, filled a bag with all the jewels, and handed it to a courier who had just arrived. The courier placed the bag back in the truck and told the driver to return to the starting point. When the truck arrived back, a man in sunglasses took the bag and transferred it to another vehicle. A perfect robbery was complete. Although the police arrested everyone involved, the investigation revealed something strange. None of the participants knew each other, and none realized they were committing a crime. They were all just following instructions from notes. The man in sunglasses was the last person in the chain. When the detective questioned him angrily,
तूने गाड़ी के ड्राइवर को देखा?
No, sir.
गाड़ी का नंबर देखा?
No, sir.
गाड़ी का कलर तो पता होगा?
No, sir.
asking if he was blind. The man simply nodded. It turned out someone had promised to cure his vision if he carried the bag and walked 5 steps backward. An investigation confirmed a surgery had been scheduled for him. The detective was furious. With no other leads, he requested backup from headquarters, and they sent a top detective to assist. But what they didn't know was that an even bigger heist was already on its way.